You get a tax break for a racehorse. Why in God's name couldn't we provide a $8,000 tax credit for everybody who has child care costs? It would put 720 million women back in the workforce. It would increase the GDP, to sound like a wonk here, by about 0.8%. It would grow the economy. You get a tax break for...
Whether Joe Biden realizes it or not, there are only 320 million or so people within the entire United States. Joe Biden just said 700 million people back into the workforce. And again, there are only 320 million people in this country, give or take. Which means that even if he was just talking about the entire population of the United States, he's talking about a tax credit, supposedly for parents, that he's saying is going to put everybody back into the workforce, or twice our population back into the workforce. This makes zero sense. And yet, again, one campaign stump after the next, Joe Biden gets out there and says things that are just out of the blue and oftentimes outright incoherent. And then he had the ironic twist at the end of, don't mean to sound like a wonk here. You're not sounding like a wonk, Joe. You're not sounding like a wonk. Narratives are powerful things, right? What do you think the narrative that's being created around Joe Biden in this campaign? What do you think is that narrative? What do you think is that narrative? Back in, 2012, I believe, Obama takes a risky gamble, spends a ton of money in early states that he was going to need to win to change or to instantiate this notion of Romney as an out-of-touch plutocrat. Meaning that from the standpoint of everything that was being taken after that, the moment that you instantiate the narrative of Romney as a plutocrat, everything else that comes out that lends itself to that particular point of view gets a highlight on it. It's like a drive a Mini, and now I see Minis everywhere that are drive. Once the narrative is instantiated, it's there. The focal point, the lens that people look through is that narrative, whether it is true or not. Trump working with the Russians. Even when Mueller comes out and says, yeah, we couldn't really find anything on this particular front. This is not necessarily true, and the thing that they were using for it was dodgy at best. That doesn't in one iota stop Russiagators from still digging the hole. What did Bill Maher say? I don't care what Mueller says. I know the truth. I see it with my own eyes. Why? Because at that point, the narrative had been instantiated. Is Bill Clinton really the first black president? He was called that. He was called it on multiple occasions. The first black president. He destroyed welfare. And yes, there are more whites on welfare. But you could say that African Americans was also using it. And 70% of which, those people on welfare, were children. Bill Clinton put in a racist policy that were locking up essentially African Americans, given a certain disparity between whites and blacks in regards to the sentencing. Bill Clinton knew about it. Bill Clinton still pushed that legislation through, exacerbating the difference between whites and blacks in the way that they're being sentenced. Essentially for the same drug. One is crack, one is cocaine. But that sentencing disparity essentially evolved because African Americans would use crack and they would get longer sentences. Meaning a white person who's essentially getting locked up using cocaine and a black person who gets locked up using crack, the black person gets a much, much longer sentence. Did that in any way stop Bill Clinton from being called the first black president? It did not. Narratives are powerful things. What do you think the narrative that's being created around sundown Biden here, with all of these gaffes, missteps, cognitive glitches on one stage after the next? I said that all of these things were going to be rounded up and they were going to be used to attack Joe Biden on sanity and racism. And here we are. Didn't take that long at all. Trump's war room has released an attack video. And guess what it's hitting on? Guess. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you enjoy this content, you find yourself coming back here often, please like this video, share this video, and of course subscribe. And you can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is often demonetized, and this content is at this point brought to you by you. And thank you for the opportunity to do so. This has been a miserable day, and that's to put it mildly. The radio show was crap, so that essentially was pulled down. There was a break in the computer monitor, random. Essentially, the only place that the monitor had been was between here and to the radio station. But computer is broken. There's no warranty on the computer, apparently. And Best Buy said, look, even if we gave you another computer for this computer, you would have to fix the monitor first, and we would have to send your computer out, and it would take 2 weeks. So it's like, wait, so even if I had the warranty on this, you wouldn't be able to do anything for me anyway. Yes, that is true. Like, motherfucker. That's okay. My wife had a monitor, a old one, and this was able to kind of create a rigged up system, but it's kind of backwards. However, we're going to do the news nonetheless. Now that I'm finished bitching and talking about me, let's get into the news. Joe Biden, I said early on, several months ago, I said Joe Biden's weaknesses will be brought back to haunt him, and they will be used to try to inoculate Trump from some of the things that Joe Biden may use to try to attack him. And here we are. It didn't take long at all. If you remember when Hillary Clinton was on campaign stage with Donald Trump, the debate stage, what did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump brought the women that were accusing Bill Clinton of either rape or sexual assault and had them sitting in the front row of the debate. He was using that to inoculate himself from Democratic claims of sexual abuse. What do you think he's going to use for Joe Biden? I said 2 threads: race and cognitive malfunctions. They were so gentle with Joe Biden. Oh, they were so angry at Julian Castro for attacking Joe Biden's memory. And I kind of made the point that if Joe Biden has a glass jaw where you had to coddle him to this extent, you better find that out now. Because I guarantee you Donald Trump would not be coddling him in the general election. And what do you know? We're not even at the primaries. And we have the first entry of attack ads from Trump's war room. Come on.
You really don't.
That is not a joke. That is a natural fact.
I think Biden looked unsteady at many points.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone.
He's not.
By the way, that one just happened. That was, honestly, the more I think about Joe Biden's comment that night on the debate stage, the more that is the most racist shit that I think I've heard anyone say. Honestly. Like, people have said some things that are dog whistles. People have said some things that are, blurred the line, that type of stuff where people are like, oh, maybe not. It gets subjective. But I'm more bothered. I'm bothered on 2 fronts. A, that he said it. Because this guy's leading with African-American votes, meaning the only thing that is keeping Joe Biden afloat is the fact that African-Americans are voting for his ass. And B, that the media didn't respond to this in a way of saying, oh my God, that was brutally racist. Worse than anything Trump has ever said. Look back over any comment that Trump has ever made in his entire time in office, including the riding down the escalator saying some of them are rapists and drug dealers. Joe Biden, on a question dealing with, and I'm going to play this back from the beginning, but on a question dealing with the legacy of slavery in the United States, and it was an open-ended question. Joe Biden could have said anything that Joe Biden wanted to say. And the thing that Joe Biden said was, you need to play the record player. And beyond playing the record player, black families or black mothers don't know how to take care of their kids. And he did 2 things here. The question posed to him didn't pose this issue as a problem, if you understand what I'm saying. It posed it as an open-ended question on what do you do with the legacy for slavery. And in his case, he identified a problem in his answer. And he identified that problem as blacks and apparently their youth. And he said they don't know how to raise their kids. And he's essentially dumping this off on the schools and sending government workers to tell mothers how to raise their children because they don't know how. That's astonishing. If Donald Trump would have said that, people would have lost their minds. They would, oh my God, I can't believe he said black families don't know how to raise their kids. Joe Biden gets on the campaign stage, says that, it still gets black support. You have no idea how much it burns me that Joe Biden gets the support of the African American community. You have no idea how much it burns me that Clinton got that support. They are actively supporting somebody that is against their self-interest. And not just against their self-interest, gets on a campaign on a debate stage and says shit like that. Yes, it burns me. The more I thought of it, it burns me more because it made me realize Joe Biden identified that African Americans are a problem within the context of society. Go back and listen to his answer. And within the context of that problem exists because families, African Americans, don't know how to raise their kids. And if they did, things would be better, leaving out all the economic realities associated with having a start in the country as slaves. There's no break in history. You can look at outcomes. You can look at poverty stats. You can look at the difference between the wealth of white and blacks. All of those things. Those things didn't come out of magic. Those things came basically out of how this government and how the people of this particular country propagated themselves. One group was able to propagate itself rather freely. The other one, not so much. This is not to say that Joe Biden should have made an argument for reparations. I hope you understand what I mean. I'm getting more so to the point that in a question about the legacy of slavery, he chose to go in a direction that essentially said blacks are a problem, and part of that problem is they don't know how to raise their kids. The question never posited it as a problem. It never posited anything other than, what do you do to deal with the vestiges of slavery? That was a horrible answer. That was a really horrible answer. And Nina Turner being pissed off the way she was, Nina Turner has a point. Let's start this from the beginning. Trump's war room.
The most polished speaker anymore.
The president my friend from Vermont thinks that
Watching his long, winding answers that don't really make sense in recent debates has also raised the question as to whether that has gotten worse and whether he is up for this.
the fact is that the bills that the future president here.
There's a lot of people who are concerned about Joe Biden's ability to carry the ball all the way across the end line without fumbling.
Go to Joe 30330.
He looked kind of unsteady and almost deer in the headlights.
So what are we doing? What's going on right now?
He's not that good at this. I mean, he's clearly not that strong a candidate, thinking on his feet.
Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
I think there are some concerns, and they've been expressed by Democrats themselves
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
over whether Joe Biden is equipped to withstand a very grueling campaign.
We choose truth over facts.
Joe Biden was really shaky, both because he was stumbling through his answers
I'm the vice president of the United States.
and also because the substance of those answers hasn't really gotten better.
Those details are irrelevant.
I think we're going to see growing questions, wondering if he has the mental and physical stamina to get through this campaign.
I love this place. Look, what's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town.
Obama warned Biden's aides to make sure Biden didn't embarrass himself.
Imagine.
Whoa, stop there. Stop there. Stop there. Honestly, this entire campaign video could have just been that. Obama told Biden's aides to ensure Joe Biden doesn't make a fool out of himself. You know what this means, right? It means that Obama has worked with Biden enough to know that he's not altogether there. And that he's telling his aides, look, help him out. Write stuff on his hand. He could just look at his hand when he needs to, and he can't necessarily remember how many people are in this country. 320 million people in this country. Don't let him make a fool of himself. Honestly, that by itself is a hit video. And it is an effective one because at that point, it's the guy who Biden is living off and rubbing himself in is essentially saying, don't let him make a fool of himself. That's amazing. That's damning. That's damning.
What would have happened if, God forbid, Barack Obama had been assassinated?
Real conversation that is happening among Democrats. Has he?
I'm the Vice President of the United States.
And also because the substance of those answers hasn't really gotten better.
Those details are irrelevant.
I think we're going to see growing questions, wondering if he has the mental and physical stamina to get through this campaign.
I love this place. Look, what's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town.
Obama warned Biden's aides to make sure Biden didn't embarrass himself.
Imagine what would have happened if, God forbid, Barack Obama had been assassinated.
Real conversation that is happening among Democrats. Has he lost a step? Is he too shaky?
I want to be clear. I'm not going nuts.
There are definitely moments where you listen to Joe Biden and you just wonder.
Ouch. Jesus Christ. And they were worrying about Julian Castro. They were worried about Castro. They better be worried about Donald Trump. God, man, he is... that is a brutal video. That is a really brutal video. Biden thinks blacks can't govern themselves. That's back asswards. Yes. Yes. Not just govern themselves. I mean, it goes beyond that. Joe Biden went into this notion that blacks don't know how to raise their kids. That's amazing. That is amazing. I'm sorry. That should be disqualifying. I don't know how that's not disqualifying. I mean, because think about it for the moment. Any random Democrat you put up, African Americans vote to the tune of what, like 90%. When you're voting in numbers like that, for the most part, you're just going to be taken advantage of because you're voting in numbers that are so over the top. And it's understood that the reason you're voting in numbers like that is not because you love the person. It's because you're terrified of the other creatures in the party. And so the only thing that really comes into factor of, are you going to keep the creatures at bay? It's not love. And at this point, the Democratic Party knows that it's not love. In the same way that they know Hispanics are terrified again of what Donald Trump or what the other party would do. So again, you get Hispanics voting in large numbers. This is out of fear. This is not because they love the candidate. Many older African Americans look at Joe Biden and just assume that they know Joe Biden. And they think it takes a person like that for the white audience to bite on. Meaning that from the perspective of African Americans, America, that is mostly white, will only accept a character like Joe Biden. This is called electability. This is them with their perspective of the world and thinking to themselves, who on earth of these candidates will the public accept? And they're coming to this assessment that it's Joe Biden. This is not based on any news. This is not based on any media or anything else. But keep in mind, when I was younger and I would go into the polling to vote, I didn't know who the other candidates were. I didn't know what their policies were. I would automatically vote the Democrat. Same thing here. If that unravels, you will find Joe Biden shrivel up overnight. It hasn't unraveled yet. And again, it burns me that Joe Biden gets the support of the African American community. It really does. It's extraordinary. He can get on the stage and say stuff like that. And again, if any Republican said that, they would have been disqualified. And yet, Joe Biden does it, and you would have anchors, white anchors, that don't quite get why that's offensive. And would even say, well, I mean, people might not have followed that one. Yeah, because he was fucking incoherent. But behind being incoherent, that was him. That wasn't anything that anybody told him. That wasn't anything that anybody put in him. That was him. That was him speaking extemporaneously. You were getting what he actually believed. What I would tell Joe Biden is that many of the issues that are associated with the African community are of economics. The very thing that he didn't touch on. You're talking about hundreds of years of free labor and a leg up to the other members of the community, of the society, in the country. It's like playing Monopoly, and you start somebody off with 20,000 Monopoly bucks, and you start somebody off with 0, and then the guy with the 20,000 Monopoly bucks turns around and says, dude, you haven't caught up yet? You haven't caught up yet? But those are issues of economics. Joe Biden didn't have to answer that question in terms of reparations. I hope you understand what I mean. Joe Biden could have answered the question any way he wanted to. They put that in that video already, which means that Donald Trump is looking to inoculate himself from issues and causes of racism by using stuff that Joe Biden has said that is outright racist. And even though it didn't get the media attention, now, what I would wager to you is that it will get attention in the various states that those ads are being run. Not to mention eating into the black vote who may vote for him that are millennials, who may vote for somebody like Sanders because they think that they're going to get something out the deal, as opposed to voting for somebody like Biden who says shit like this. Just saying. All right, I'm going to end this because I have several more videos and I want to, at the very least, get those in. The radio show was horrible. Everything fell apart. The screen fell apart. The mic fell apart. And then it was one of those things where Ron is awesome, but when he answers the phone, he's so loud. And so it's like, it's a stream of consciousness thing, right? It's like if my wife is making a lot of noise in the background while I'm doing my show, it interrupts the show because the stream of consciousness fucks up. I can't keep the stream in a noisy environment. It's just difficult to do. And so it's like talking on the phone messes up the flow. So there are often times where there are fits and starts in the show, and I hated that show. So I kill that on my end, so you're not going to be seeing that particular radio show today. That shit's going to be buried forever. However, I will do what I was going to do on the show tonight. So this is going to be a long night. I'm going to end this here. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in 10 minutes, however long it takes to get to the next show. Thanks all.